What's up, guys? Welcome to the first ever episode of Monday with the Cones. Today, I have the honor and privilege to sit down with not just Grant Cohn, but Lowell Cohn. So, how are you guys doing tonight?
We're doing great. I mean, it's very nice to be on with you.
It's nice to introduce my dad to you and vice versa. Very proud of me and very proud of my dad and been looking forward to this all weekend.
Yep, I look forward to it all weekend also. So, let's just jump right into it.
Okay.
Starting off with which quarterback should the 49ers start week one?
Okay. I'm going first, Grant.
You go
Yep.
first.
Now, this is a big controversy. And as you know, I mean, we have bet a bottle of wine on this.
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading lately that Kyle Shanahan is going to trade Jimmy Garoppolo either during training camp or during the preseason. I've been reading that, which would imply that the rookie is going to be the starting quarterback. I'm going to stick with Jimmy. I think if they get rid of him, they're really counting on a rookie and some unknown or a bust as a backup quarterback. I would start Jimmy and let him play as long as he stays well and plays well until the bye, and then I would bring in the rookie. That's what I would do. What about you, Grant?
That's fair. I think that's reasonable to say wait until the bye week. I do think though, if Trey Lance looks great in the preseason, he's supposed if he looks ready and whatever that is ready, I would say sure, go ahead and start him. But if he looks shaky in the preseason, then waiting until the bye week sounds perfectly reasonable to me.
Yep. If he plays well in the preseason, yeah, you could start him. But it all depends how well he plays in the preseason. And the safer option is obviously Jimmy Garoppolo. And that's what I feel like John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan will lean towards because Jimmy Garoppolo's been there longer and they're confident in Jimmy Garoppolo. So I don't know if they're ready and fully confident in starting Trey Lance week one. And I agree with your dad. Let Jimmy Garoppolo play until he's healthy. If he plays well, and as long as he's healthy and he's playing, play him. Don't put in the rookie right away. Because also, if the Trey Lance doesn't play bad, all the media and everybody's gonna come after him, and then people are gonna be like, "You spent 3 first round picks on this guy, and he's not even doing well for you. He's not even winning games for you." Then Jimmy Garoppolo will win games for you. Trey Lance isn't. So don't rush it. I feel like Jimmy Garoppolo will start week one, and I think Jimmy Garoppolo should start week one.
I love this kid, Iggy. See,
He's
he agrees
good.
with me.
He's good. He agrees because he agrees with you.
I mean, may I ask Grant a quick question before we move on? Iggy, what was that thing somebody said? The key battle is between Josh Rosen and Sudfield for B. I mean, did that really happen?
I couldn't believe that someone would
was
even
that?
think that, let alone write it. But my colleague, the great David Lombardi from The Athletic, I don't know, he was having an off day. He just said that the number one battle in training camp is going to be between the Niners' third string and fourth string quarterbacks. Where, I mean, David, I love you, but how did you write that? How did that thought cross your synapse, come out your fingers, and actually you press send on that? I mean, David, I love you, but yeah, that was
Iggy. He really wrote that.
he really wrote that. I don't know.
Okay.
I've written things that I don't stand by, but whoa.
I mean, it seems to me that the battle for the number one quarterback, which is not yet decided yet, might be a little more. But anyway, David, I don't know you.
Yeah.
I have to say I disagree with you, but God love you. Okay.
God love you.
I mean, I'm sorry.
That's a
Sorry,
that's a bold thing to do. I'm not
Yeah.
even gonna lie. That's a bold thing to do. I would never do that.
Well, there you go. All right, what's the next topic?
The next topic is who is on your 49ers Mount Rushmore?
So these are four people.
Yep.
Okay.
4 people.
I can do it easy.
Mhm.
Bill Walsh, Eddie DeBartolo,
Hmm.
Joe Montana, Jerry Rice. Now, I've left out two people.
Yes.
I've left out Steve Young, and I've left out Dwight Clark. And also,
Ooh.
I've left out Ronnie Lott.
That's the one. Yeah.
Ronnie Lott. But I'm sticking by my four. How about you, Iggy?
Well, you got it. I mean, you're Mr. 49ers. I'm not arguing with your interpretation of history. You got it. That's absolutely. I think putting in Eddie DeBartolo is very interesting because he created everything. He hired Bill Walsh.
Yeah.
It's very smart. If I were going to limit it only to players, just to advance the discussion, I would put, I would put Ronnie Lott in there, Dad. I think he's one of the greatest defensive players of all time. And then the question is, who would number 4 be, Young or Clark? That's a tough one. Young? Clark?
Dwight had that catch.
Yes, he did.
Steve was a better player.
Yes, he was.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying then you would, if you limited it to players, so you would have Bill Walsh would not be on.
Right, just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of it. So
okay,
I would put in Ronnie Lott and Steve Young. What about you? I mean,
was that 4?
That's 4. Yeah, I had Montana, Rice, Young, Lott, if we're doing just players.
So players, Montana's up there for sure. You could argue that he's the second best quarterback in NFL history. Then I have to put Jerry Rice up there. Jerry Rice leads the league in pretty much receiving yards all time, touchdowns all time. Jerry Rice is easily up there. He's also the GOAT of receivers. Then I have to put Ronnie Lott up there. Ronnie Lott has to get a spot on the 49ers Mount Rushmore. He was the heart and soul of that defense. And he would hit people so hard. He would legit knock you out of your socks. Then my 4th, this is a tough one. I don't know if I should put Steve Young up there. Who should I put up on my 4th one? I'm going to put Steve Young on my 4th one. Because Steve Young, I love Steve Young, man. I love the left-handed quarterbacks. Not that many left-handed quarterbacks. And he was amazing. And he knew how to scramble, man. He could throw and he could run. And he was an amazing runner. So Steve Young is up there for sure.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I mean, if Steve hears about this, it'll really make him happy that you put him on the Mount Rushmore. We'll appreciate
Steve Young gets overlooked because of Montana, man.
Yeah, man. Hey, Dad, the funny thing about Amin's really cool. What took him out to lunch with Swasti, and when he was at lunch, he was 13 years old. He was a little nervous. You know what I mean? He was 13. On camera, he's 30. I love him. I love this kid. All the confidence comes out, and he's like a full-blown adult on YouTube. Doing great.
He's terrific, I mean.
I'm liking the show so far. You're doing great.
Thank you. So let's move on to the next topic. In your opinion, is Kyle Shanahan a top 5 head coach in the NFL?
Do you mean top 5 of the coaches right now?
Yes. Currently, yes.
Okay, I need a minute. And Iggy, you may need to help me on this.
Sure.
I would not put him over Pete Carroll.
Nope.
I wouldn't put him over the guy in New Orleans.
Nope.
Sean Payton.
No. Andy Reid.
Oh, God, no. Andy Reid, I wouldn't put him over Andy Reid.
Bill Belichick.
Not even over Bill Belichick.
I wouldn't put him over Bill Belichick. So he might
Bruce Arians
into the 5th, but is there another one, Iggy?
Well, Bruce Arians just won the Super Bowl. Mike Tomlin's won Super Bowls.
Yeah,
Sean McVay.
I would say no, he's not a top 5 coach. I think he's a top 10.
I think what's intriguing about him is that he has the potential to be one. He's 41.
Yep.
He went to the Super Bowl once. He's had excuses and injuries. He seems like he has the potential, but not yet. I don't think yet. No, not yet.
And
I don't think.
Hold on, let my dad go real quick before you go in. I mean, what were you going to say, Dad?
Again, I don't know Shanahan, but my guess is if he were with us, which he never would be, he would not say he was a top 5 quarterback. I'm sorry, top 5 head coach. I mean, what were you going to say?
I don't think he's a top 5 head coach only because of that win record. I don't even think he's a top 10 head coach. And I know people in the chat might not like that, but he doesn't have that win percentage. And I get the excuses, but nobody cares about the excuses. It matters all about how you get it done. And if you get it done, and it's all about if you win or you lose. And Kyle Shanahan does not have a winning record. So Kyle Shanahan's not even top 10. I can name you 10 coaches that are better than Kyle Shanahan. Mike Tomlin, Pete Carroll, Sean McVay, Bruce Arians, Andy Reid, who else?
Belichick, Peyton.
Belichick is easily up there.
John Harbaugh, up there. He won a Super Bowl.
John Harbaugh is also up there.
You're right. John Harbaugh.
Anyone who's won a Super Bowl, you'd have to give him some respect.
Yep. But the thing about Kyle Shanahan, he doesn't have that win record, man. He doesn't have the win record. And nobody cares about the excuses. If Bill Belichick didn't have all his win percentage and win all those Super Bowls, and he made excuses of like, oh, my Tom Brady got injured, nobody would consider as Bill Belichick even a top 5 head coach. So Kyle Shanahan does have the potential because he has a team, but the injuries and all that, that's just holding him back. But he has all the potential to be a top 5 head coach.
He might be a top 5 play caller, might be a top 5 offensive coordinator, and he has the
He's
potential to be
definitely
a
a
top
top
5
5
head coach
offensive
one day.
coordinator.
Yep.
He does.
Okay.
So moving on to the next topic is who will give the 49ers the toughest run for their money?
Who would give the 49ers the toughest run for their money? You mean any team in the league?
First is in the division, and then second is stop them from the Super Bowl. Who gives them the toughest for the Super Bowl?
I don't think that's my phone.
That's a mean. He's going to handle it. Go ahead.
Toughest run for their money.
In the division. Why don't we start there, and then NFC after that?
Okay. In the division, Iggy, I know that LA is. I know that the Rams are a good team and have a good coach. I just think Pete Carroll is a really good organization up there, and he has that quarterback. Yes. So I'd say Seattle, especially that it's hard for the Niners to play up there. So I'd say in the division, the Seattle, but with the Rams very close behind. I think those teams are very evenly matched, all three of them.
Okay. And then let me answer real quick, and then we'll go back and do the NFC. To me, I'm on a limb. I actually think Arizona is going to take a leap this year. I think their team is really good. They got J.J. Watt. They're bringing this other defensive end, Chandler Jones, back, who gets like 15 sacks a year. Their quarterback is very athletic and young and cheap. I think Arizona, if their coach isn't a total stiff, and he might be, I think they're going to take a leap. And then in the NFC, it's Tampa. Tampa is an amazing team. They're still really good. That was not a one-year fluke. I think if the Niners win their division, they're going to have to – Tampa will be the team in the way.
I agree. I do agree with that. And I would say Tampa and definitely not Green Bay. Green Bay has tremendous problems, Iggy.
Yes, they do. It's very strange what's going on because they've been a very stable organization for like my whole life.
I don't even know if Aaron Rodgers is going to play in Green Bay this year. So in the NFC, if he could opt out. In the NFC, I agree with your dad. It's the Seahawks. The thing about the Rams is that the Rams have a better roster than the Seahawks. That's just what I think. But the Rams, we beat the Rams even with Nick Mullins under center. So it's definitely not the Rams. And when we play the Seahawks, we played the Seahawks last year, 26-23, last game of the season. We played the Seahawks in 2019. Both of those games came down to in the last drive, and either the Niners pulled it out one game and the Seahawks pulled it out one game. So when we play the Seahawks, it's always down to that fourth quarter, who has less turnovers, who makes a better play, it just always comes down to that last moment. It's easily the Seahawks for me in the NFC West. Now in the NFC, it's obviously the Bucks. I don't know why the Niners didn't sign Tom Brady. I don't know what is that thought process, because when you bring Tom Brady to a team, you might not win. You might not have the most regular season wins, but you just don't bet against Tom Brady in the playoffs. That's just something that you don't want to do. You're not going to end up betting against Tom Brady in the playoffs. So I don't know why the Niners didn't sign Tom Brady, but Tom Brady is easily, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are easily the hardest team for the Niners and gives them the most run for their money.
Hey, Tom Brady's 45 years old. If he gets old and plays like he's old, then it's wide open for the 49ers. That's an interesting little wrinkle about this season.
You know what also is interesting about that team? I mean,
what?
Tampa is, although they won the Super Bowl and there's a lot of really great players, they're a recently put together team, and they have all the desire to win of a young team.
Yes, they do.
They have something to prove, and they play like it.
Good point.
Yep, they do. So let's move on to the next topic. Who is your favorite all-time player / 49er and why?
Okay, I need help to clarify this. I mean, do you mean the one I like the best as a person, or the one I like to watch the most as a player?
You could do both if you want.
Okay.
I mean, you're not really a fan, so I mean, I guess it would be more authentic to say that the guy you like the most.
Yeah, I would prefer to answer that one.
Yeah.
My favorite, well, it would be probably a toss-up. Steve Young is just a wonderful guy. He's really, really a terrific guy. And Ronnie Lott. I mean, I knew Ronnie from when he was a rookie. And Iggy saw, we were at a banquet one night and Ronnie was there and we saw each other. We hadn't seen each other in a few years and we hugged each other. I mean, we go back a long way together. We've talked very candidly. So I would say off the top of my head, at the players that I liked the most as people were those two guys, Steve and Ronnie.
I grew up a 49ers fan, and my all-time favorite player by far was Steve Young. My first year watching, when I was 5 years old, my first memories as a person was watching the Niners, him winning the Super Bowl. Then I got to meet him when I was 7 because my dad introduced us. That was amazing. I mean, and then when he finally got hurt by Aeneas Williams and couldn't play anymore, I was upset that day. I really adored Steve Young, by far my favorite athlete of all time.
Favorite athlete?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No question. I would always wear number 8 on teams because of him. Always. How about you,
Dedicated to Steve Young, man.
I was.
I'm gonna go with Jerry Rice. Even without Joe Montana, when Joe Montana was there, he still played with Steve Young, and he was just a beast. Jerry Rice is hands down. Now the thing about Joe Montana is that Joe Montana is not the greatest quarterback of all time. And Niners fans might say that he is, but he's definitely not better than Tom Brady. But Jerry Rice is easily hands down the best receiver. And anybody who says different, I don't know what you're talking about. Because Jerry Rice leads the league in all time in receiving and touchdowns, which is really impressive. And he's just my favorite Niner of all time, hardest worker. And he always did things. He always tried to work hard. And that's the thing. Like I remember watching something when the Niners had Deion Sanders on that team when Steve Young to beat the Chargers. And Deion Sanders was out partying and Jerry Rice was out like training and working, and they got into fights or whatnot. But Jerry Rice had that different mentality where he would work even though they might have the best bet. They would have easily killed the Chargers, but he still would work and try to put in that effort and just grind. So I love Steve Young's work. I love Jerry Rice's work ethic, and I just love him as a player. So I got to go Jerry Rice.
Greatest football player of all time and one of the greatest athletes of all time. Jerry Rice.
I mean, if you don't mind, I have a follow-up question for you. You've said twice now that Joe Montana is the second best quarterback of all time and Tom Brady's the best. I'm not so sure I agree with you on that. Why is Tom Brady a better quarterback than Joe Montana?
Tom Brady has the rings. He has 7 rings, which is really hard to do as a quarterback. Now, the thing about Joe Montana is that Joe Montana has 4 rings, and so does Terry. Joe Montana has 4 rings, if I remember correctly, and so does Terry Bradshaw have 4 rings. So you could argue that Terry Bradshaw and Joe Montana are in the same category, but they're not. Joe Montana is the second best quarterback, but also being down 28-3 in a Super Bowl and coming back, nobody expected the Patriots to come back 28-3. To have 7 rings, to come back and down 28-3 in a Super Bowl, to do what Tom Brady's doing at his age is really, really hard to do. It's easily Tom Brady.
Okay, hold on a second. They came back. They were down. Who were they down 28-3 to?
To the Kyle Shanahan Falcons.
Yeah, I don't see that so much as New England winning that game as Kyle Shanahan losing that game. So that's one thing.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
It's true that Brady has more rings than Joe. Joe never lost the Super Bowl.
It's true.
Never lost the Super Bowl. And I want to say another thing. When Joe played, you could really hit a quarterback.
It's true.
You could really hurt a quarterback. Brady played under more forgiving rules for quarterbacks. In addition, Joe could you don't think of him as a mobile quarterback, but he was.
Yes.
I mean, the catch, he ran right. Yeah. And Brady is not a mobile quarterback. So look, what I want to say is I happen to believe Joe was better. But on the other hand, I covered Joe. I never covered Brady. But I think it's an argument, but I don't think it's an easy decision. I certainly have trouble saying Joe is the second best. I'd say it's a fair argument between the two.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. I mean, but even Tom Brady certainly has the longevity. But what my dad is
Mm-hmm.
saying is that the reason he's still playing in his mid 40s because he can't touch quarterbacks anymore. He wouldn't have been playing in his mid 40s in the 80s and 90s. That's a good
No.
point. That's a good point.
Yeah, but even the stats compared to Brady's stats and Joe Montana's stats, Joe Montana's played from 1979 to 1994, and he only has 273 touchdowns, while Brady has over 79,000 passing yards, 510 touchdowns, and at his age, that's hard to
They
do.
changed the rules though. You can't hit the quarterbacks the same. You can't touch the wide receivers
I
anymore.
don't. Yeah, I
Uh,
don't.
yeah, you can't compare the numbers because the
Yeah,
average quarterback rating in the 80s was 75, and the average quarterback rating now is 92.
yeah, and if
But
Joe played now, he'd have a very very high quarterback rating. The numbers are not comparable.
I think the biggest difference between them is that Joe can move. Joe can
Yeah,
move. Yep. But
Yeah,
I think Tom Brady took his fitness a little bit more seriously. I
you
mean,
know, I would
what?
have
Go
to
ahead.
agree.
Yeah.
Maybe Joe didn't even know about those ideas. It was another era.
Yes.
Certainly, Brady is a physical phenomenon, and it's because he takes it so seriously. Yeah,
Also, I feel like Brady separates himself from people like Aaron Rodgers and other people of his generation because he's the coach too. That's what really separates him. He is the coach as well. Maybe Joe could have been that as well, but Tom Brady I think has an impact beyond what he does in the pocket.
okay.
Anyway, let's move on.
and the other thing about Tom Brady before we move on is that Tom Brady, that Bucks team with Jameis Winston, the only thing that they didn't have with Jameis Winston that they had with this, it was pretty much the same Bucks team. They had Mike Evans, they had Chris Godwin, they had Shaquille Barrett, and Shaquille Barrett actually did better when Jameis Winston was quarterback. He had 19 sacks. They had Levante David, they had Devin White, so they basically had the same team, and they didn't make it to the playoffs. You add Tom Brady. On the other hand, you add Tom Brady on the factor. The only difference was that they had Antonio Brown, and Antonio Brown didn't do that much. He didn't have 1,000 yard season. So you add Tom Brady to the Bucks, and they win a Super Bowl.
Winning with two teams is very impressive.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
So let's move on to the next topic. Is who is your favorite current 49ers player and why?
Okay. Now this is where it gets complicated. I mean, I'm a retired sports writer, which means I'm not a fan. I don't root for teams. So I don't have a favorite 49er. I've never met the current guys, so I don't have any personal feelings about them. And as far as liking them, I mean, I appreciate the way Kittle plays, but it doesn't make me like him or care about him. Um, I appreciate the way Mostert plays, but never met him. So I would have to say I do not have a favorite player. It's not a concept I even think about.
What about you, Grant?
I like watching George Kittle play, and I like his press conferences. But now that he won't respond to me and come on my show, I can't say him. So I'm really looking forward to watching this new quarterback in training camp. That's my new favorite player, Trey Lance. I'm looking forward to watching him play in camp.
Mine is
But it's
Kittle.
still Steve Young.
Mine is Kittle right now. Kittle just has the energy, and he plays physical, man. I love his energy. I love what he does on the sideline. I just love Kittle in all aspects, on the way he plays, the stuff that he does off the field. I just love Kittle in general. So Kittle has to be my favorite 49ers player right now. So we're done with the football topics, but I want to ask your dad a question. How did you become a sports writer, Mr. Cohn?
Sure. Um, what happened was when I finished my education, I knew I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't know what kind of writer I wanted to be. And I was living in Palo Alto at the time, and I hooked on with the local paper called the Palo Alto Times. But I was not a sports writer. I was a film critic. And what a film critic, does, you go see a movie when it just comes out, and you write an article about it, telling whether you think it's a good movie or not, and whether you recommend it to viewers, and why or why not. And so I was a film critic, but at the same time, I also was selling articles to Sports Illustrated. I had made a connection there, and I was what you call a freelance writer. I was not on their staff, but I had a relationship with them, and I gave them ideas. They often liked them, and I wrote stuff would go in the magazine, and they'd pay me. After a while, when I had enough articles, I wrote to the San Francisco Chronicle and said I would like to meet with them, and maybe they would hire me. And I thought if they would hire me, they would hire me as a film critic. But they had just hired a film critic, and they asked me would I like to be a sports columnist. So sure. I mean, I would love to be a sports columnist. What I'm saying is I wasn't in love with sports. I was in love with writing. And I could have written about movies or sports or anything else they wanted me to do. But I knew a lot about sports. I had grown up like you, interested in sports. I knew all about baseball and football and basketball and boxing, which used to be a big deal and isn't anymore. And so I just ended up being a sports writer, and I loved my life. I did it for 40 years. It was incredibly exciting. But the way I got into it was just I sent my stuff in. Somebody there liked my stuff, and my story is unusual. Usually, you go to school to study journalism, which I never did. I studied English literature, and then you get a job at a small paper, and then they see you, and you cover high school stuff, and you work your way up. I never did anything like that. What I did was almost like a miracle.
Do you feel like it was a miracle that they hired you to be a sports writer instead of a movie critic?
Yes, I think I was much happier as a sports writer than I would have been as a movie critic, and I'll tell you why, Iggy. As a movie critic, I'd be writing about somebody else's work.
Yes.
As a columnist, I was doing my work.
Right.
I was the primary creative artist.
Yes.
Yeah, I was the primary creator. So, and also as a film critic, I really wouldn't have gotten to know very many people because I'd just be watching movies in a dark room. But as a sports writer, I got to know Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Steve Young, Randy Cross. I got, Ahmad Brooks, Bill Walsh, Steve Mariucci.
It's too bad at the end of movies that they don't bring out the director and the leading actor and actress and be like in the third act, what the hell was that? First of all,
what was that?
The hell was that? I like the ending though.
Iggy, how did you? Yes,
go ahead. I mean,
I have a follow-up question for you. What's your most memorable locker room or encounter with any player, like a locker room moment with a player? What's your most memorable encounter with a player?
Okay, hold on. Iggy, the most memorable was with Jack Elway, but I don't think I can tell it on this.
No, the Randy Moss one's good. And he knows Randy Moss.
No, not that one either. That has a lot of cursing in it.
You can bleep it out.
Okay. All right. I'll tell you the Randy Moss. All right. I mean, you know who Randy Moss is?
Yep.
Okay. He was an all-time great wide receiver, somewhat overrated, didn't go over the middle. He was with the Raiders. They played a Monday night game in Seattle. And I want to let you know, Monday night games end late. And on a newspaper, you have a deadline. You got to have your stuff in, let's say, by 11 o'clock. It may be even have been earlier. But the game ended kind of late, so we went into the locker room. The Raiders had lost. We wanted to talk to the quarterback. Iggy, I forgot the quarterback's name.
Andrew Walter. Andrew Walter.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He was a very nice guy. And what he said was, I know you're in a hurry. I just want to take a quick shower. Give me a minute. And he was very polite. And he said, I'll be out in a minute. I won't hold you up.
Yeah. So
there were a whole bunch of us waiting by Andrew Walter's locker. I want to say, let's say 10 writers in the Bay Area. Now, Randy Moss comes out of the shower and he's just has a towel around his waist. And his locker was way far away from Andrew Walter's. There was no reason for him to come over to us. But he came over anyway, and he said, the media, I ain't talking to the media. And I mean, it burned me up. I was nervous about making my deadline. I was waiting on Andrew Walter. And here this guy comes to pick a fight for no reason. So I said, it's okay that you don't want to talk to the media because we don't want to talk to you. I said, we want to talk to Andrew Walter. We don't want to talk to you. So he didn't like that. So he said, he said, why do you have to get personal? And I said, I'm not getting personal. We just don't want to talk to you. So he said, who are you? And I said, I'm Lowell Cohn. Who are you? Now, of course, I knew who he was, but
he was no one. I mean, he had done nothing on the Raiders. He wasn't he had done nothing on the Raiders, and he was about to get shipped out of
the game. He was just looking for it. So he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, who are you?" And he got so angry at me.
Yeah.
He started running around the locker room, calling me dirty names, calling me bald, and the other players. He expected them to support him, but they had just lost the game. He didn't do anything. They couldn't have cared less about him. They just kept dressing, and he went around screaming at me. And to tell you the truth, I mean, it made me laugh. And I'm so glad I said to him, "I'm Lowell Cohn. Who are you?"
Dang. You're muted, Grant. You're muted.
Sorry about that. So I'm looking this up. This was November 6th, 2006. I was a freshman in college. I was away. I remember you called me to tell me that this happened. The Seahawks won 16-0. The Raiders scored 0 points.
They got shut out.
They scored 0 points in that game.
That's why we wanted to talk to the quarterback. I see. Yeah. Iggy, I called you after the game.
Yeah, you're never gonna believe what happened. And I was out. I was down in LA. I didn't know what the Raiders were doing. Wow. That was a good story.
Dang.
I was very proud of you for that one, Dad. Very proud.
Dang. Man, your dad
it's a dang.
has guts, man. Your dad said that to Randy Moss, Hall of Fame wide receiver.
And the thing people don't know about my dad, like he would do it without flinching. It's not like he would get nervous. His heart rate wouldn't go up. He was made for those tense verbal interactions, and I've never seen any coach or athlete who could hold his own with my dad. Seen him fail. I've seen him try. I've seen him try. Seen him fail. That's Michael Crabtree.
Michael Crabtree.
I mean, this was a lot of fun, man. Thanks for putting this together.
Thank you guys for joining me. I had an amazing time, and it was an honor and privilege to sit down with your dad, your legendary dad. And you're also legendary. You're also legendary. I'm not going to forget about you, but it was just an honor to sit down with your legendary
Someone
dad.
in the chat said something interesting. He said, if Lowell hadn't decided to become a sports writer, would there be Grant, Vish, Amin? I don't know. I mean, I don't think I would be a sports writer right now. I probably wouldn't be a sports writer right now if it wasn't for my dad. I wouldn't have had the idea. And I'd like to think that I've gotten some people their start as well. So, Dad, in a way, this is all your coaching tree, journalism tree.
Including Amin.
Amin,
the
second generation.
You're the next generation.
Once removed.
I'm trying,
You're doing great, man.
Okay, so that basically wraps up our show. Thank you for joining me, Lowell and Grant. I really, really appreciate it. And that basically wraps up our show. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.